Hey guys, welcome to Right Side Patriot Updates. In today's video, we're going to be interviewing Dr. Scott yet again. Dr. Scott, how you doing today?
Hey, how you doing, man?
I
Wait,
am living the dream. I am living the dream, and I am really looking forward to this new year that's just a couple days away.
yeah, so am I. Things are gonna happen really soon.
God, I hope so. My first question for you is like, it's a really powerful question. A lot of people, they want to know, and I don't really know how to answer them, but I'm pretty sure you do.
Maybe.
Um,
Let's see.
the question is that, well, the Bible says, it's really hard for a rich person to get into heaven. So if we're going to get all these financial blessings, does that mean that it's going to be harder for us to get into heaven? What are your thoughts on that?
So it says that it's harder for a rich man to go into the eye of a needle. It's harder for that situation, or the man to go through an eye of a needle, the camel go through an eye of a needle. Sorry, saying that weird. Than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And basically what happens, what the Lord Jesus specifically is talking about there is that their priorities are upon the money. And I'll tell you a real interesting thing, because I interact with the poor and the rich. I've interacted with very influential elite idiots. And the elite idiots act like I'm there to serve them. And it's just fascinating to watch the interaction with this. And pride is a huge point. And if you spend effort on your pride based upon your money, you're going to be in trouble. But can I tell you something interesting? Do you know that the poor talk about money almost as much as the rich? It's fascinating. I see poor people talk about money and their desire for it and all this stuff. It's really about the desire issues than it is about the rich stuff. What happens with rich people is that they tend to go off and they trust in their money. What God is really talking to you about it is are you going to trust in your money to get you out of everything, or are you going to trust in the Lord for that? And I talk to a lot of people who are financially independent. You might think, well, that's not like over wealthy, but they have all their bills paid for. They have 5,000, 10,000 bucks a month that come in, or whatever circumstance, and they're retired or whatever the circumstance is, they just don't. Nothing really affects them, and those people are just as dangerous as the uber wealthy. And the issue is that if you haven't been cut to your knees, then you haven't realized how much you need people around you, and you need the Lord to kind of solve things. And so there is a video, and I'm going to have to try to get it to you so you can kind of upload it with this. And there's an issue called talking about the levels of wealth, and it's a channel. And people need to kind of think about that, levels of wealth. And when you kind of see it, it's something to kind of consider in there. Sorry, someone's trying to call me there. But that's what I would really spend time on, is on your heart, because that's really what it's talking about. And I think when we pull away from that kind of thing a little bit, the reality is, I believe that we're going to move to a performance-based society. And so many people don't perform. They think they get a job at the government and they work there 40 hours and go home, or they're working at Twitter and only working 5 hours or something stupid, right? And they think that they need to be given that ability. That's some of the poor that have this, and some of the middle class have this messy mentality. I'm a business owner, man. If I don't bring it in, I'm in trouble. So I'm cut to my knees every single month. A new month comes in, we start from scratch and building up the finances for that month. And it kind of keeps you in the game in that way of like, I've got to pay, I've got a $30,000 bill tomorrow that I got to pay, and sometimes you don't have the money for it, And how do you live with that? But if you did have the money, does that release some of the stressors off of you? And I just think that people, when money might not be the full focus of their life, it still has to be a reflection of your heart. So I just keep going back to that. People need to be like, thinking about their heart and what is in their heart. And if their heart is all about getting more and more and more stuff, when you see the uber wealthy and they're driving in, they got 18 cars and 15 houses, you're like, how many more houses do you need? And I mean, I don't care. I mean, the Lord doesn't care what kind of car you drive. He doesn't care if you got 2 houses. He doesn't care about that stuff. He cares about what your heart is and where you are in that stuff. And we don't spend enough time on that. We spend more time on the money idea. And so that would be how I might address that.
What are your thoughts on people reinventing themselves while collecting coronavirus unemployment?
Sometimes people went off and reinvented themselves. And I actually hired a person in my office that went through this, and she went through a reinventing of herself. But the reality is that work actually helps you focus on what you're doing, how you're adding into society. It helps, not in a bad way, your ego. I mean, you need to have some ego in this. Okay. You don't walk onto a basketball court and just throw around shots and miss everything with that. You have to have an ego. You have to have a competitiveness, to do it well and to do it right. And you and I were talking about this before. I'm a singer. You and I were talking about our performance kind of ability. Man, I'm telling you what, I am hard as all get out on myself, with that. But that's that kind of ability of making myself better. And I think what we're struggling with is a population of people who have not been making themselves better. Okay, I don't care if you're working, I don't care if you're not working, but the reality is if you don't have to work anymore, don't work. I don't care. People ask me all the time, shouldn't you reduce the age of retirement to 56? And I'm like, I'm 56. I mean, I work. I mean, if you counted how much I work, it's probably, at lower time frames, it's 50 hours. At higher times, it's 100-hour weeks. People go, shouldn't work that hard. Why? You want to talk for me on that one? Having a purpose is really powerful. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to understand. Trump has that understanding. He's talked about jobs more than any other president out there. I mean, there's a couple of them that talk about it, but really talking about quality jobs. We just don't want to have a whole bunch of people working a hamburger stand. We want people who aspire to doing better things. And I think that's not been the focus, and that's what that's kind of what that Home Depot guy is. And hey, there are people that their top of ability, and I'm not trying to be rude here, but their top ability is to work maybe at Home Depot. I'm sorry, but and some people, that is their dream. They love that stuff. They get a variety of circumstances, or they like to work outside with their hands. First off, I'm an idiot when it comes to fixing anything or building anything. I would hate every moment of that. But other people couldn't step on stage like I do and speak in front of crowds of people or sing in front of a crowd of people. They couldn't do this. They would hate it. I'm like, aspire to be what God's telling you to be. So
After I get my financial blessing, I want my money to work for me. And one day, I want to get a wife and I want to have children. I want to be a full-time, hands-on father and husband. And running a company and punching a clock is not going to fulfill me. You see, when my father was alive, he was doing 65, 70 hours a week, and I almost never got to see him. So when I get a wife, when I have children, I want to be there for them 100% of the time.
Yeah, I got off the road because I was repping for a hearing aid manufacturer because I didn't want to be away from my child. And I'm there with him all the time. So, I mean, he's 24 now and he's at home only because he's going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff with us. And he's upstairs right now working on a project proposal for us with that. But the point is that, you need to be a father. I mean, the real evil that we really are talking about is the single mom, the single dad who's got 2 kids at home and working the jobs and doesn't have time to do anything and falls into bed, basically. That's the evil that we need to get away from. That, we have that ability to do some of that, but everyone needs a purpose in their life. And work tends to be one of those areas of purpose that we look at. Not every, but one of those areas.
What do you think is going to happen to state sales tax after NESARA rolls out?
Okay, so every tax, I mean, sales tax, for instance, their state, local, city, their state, county, city, and something. I mean, it's probably, there's state, county, and city sales tax. That's how it works. Okay, so they'll separate it out. For instance, in Tulsa, we have 8.517, and it depends on the city point or the state and the county. So that's how sales tax happens. Now, when we go to the NESARA stuff, we're going to see 14% sales tax to the federal that the IRS is going to do. Now, I had a conversation with someone who was like, you're telling people the Fed is dead and the IRS is dead. First off, the Fed will be around for another year, but they're doing what the Treasury is going to do, what the Fed does. We don't need the Fed. They'll help with some of the transition, but we don't really need the Fed. I mean, you might find some reason to put them to work, but we'll have to collapse them underneath the Treasury part. The IRS can easily do excise tax, all kinds of other little tax points that are, like import, export tax kind of things, but sales tax, so they can collect that. Now, the city and the county tax, the taxes when you walk into a place of business. One of the things that we do know is that taxation needs to get away from like food, some of those essential items that keep you going. That stuff shouldn't happen. We shouldn't have to take taxes on that, but we should have taxes on on other areas, because if you bought a new car, you can afford the taxes that would come with that. Sorry, but if you're not going to have to pay income tax, you're not going to have to pay all these other tax points. It's okay to have some of the new a new item to be taxed. If you bought you buy a new iPhone, if you got taxed on it, no problem. I mean, we shouldn't have to worry about that, because we still have to pay those people. And the reality is, this is what most people don't understand about taxation. Sales tax is what drives the incomes of states. It's what drives the county. It drives the city. That's where they get their budget from. Now, there's excise and a couple other little things, property tax, which is another thing that all the states have to go through and figure out, and if they're going to keep, and other things. But income tax from the state and income tax from the federal goes directly to the Fed. And then it goes to their pet projects when they come up with stuff. It does not go to anything that we're doing. And so I think you're going to start finding a real justice to that, which is going to be much more fair with that too.
I am really, truly hoping that states get rid of property taxes.
But guess who does that? It's the state Senate and the state, representatives. So guess what you're going to have to be doing is, Kevin, you might, I'm not saying you should, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I know a guy named Matt, and Matt here in Tulsa, he's talked about wanting to be a senator. And I don't know if it's a state or a big time senator, and he's waiting for God to kind of release him. He'd be great. But that is going to be one of those major issues that the state needs to address. And trust me, they're going to be addressing a lot of those things. And you need to put pressure on them and say, I helped you get in office. I voted for you. I, did my things. You need to do this, and hold them accountable to that. So,
because the way I see it, after people get their financial blessing from NESARA, if a state is charging property tax, these people are going to be able to leave that state. And if people leave your state, then you're going to lose money in your sales tax.
Yeah, I mean,
So at the end of the day, you want to
agree.
attract people to your state, and you'll be able to benefit from your sales tax.
And guess what you just said? You just said performance-based points. You're talking about performance-based society. See, we have been too much on, living off of the government and, getting what I'm supposed to get kind of stuff, which is the communist democratic ideals. When we go into a constitutional republic, it's not what the state can do for you. It's what, get out of the way. You don't want the state be in the way of you. And when they're doing things that, we want them that, and David Straight does gorgeous information on this, but he says, and I can't tell you the exact number, but he says there are like 15, 20 different things that the state is required by the Constitution to give. And when he means state, he means government officials and police and things like that. So, and if they're not providing it, and they're not providing it the right way, the pressure needs to be on the mayors, and the pressure needs to be on the county officials. And by the way, that all has to get flushed. That's why the certification for these E's, we're going to talk about it, the ballot kind of stupidness, that has to get fixed. And by the way, NESARA can actually fix it, because we're going to be on a blockchain basis. And I believe what you're going to walk in and show your identification. And you can show your little card, but you'll have your QFS number. You walk in there, you'll scan it in of your QFS number. They will identify that's you. You showed your identification to show that it is really you. And then you'll do the ballot, and it will get counted, and there it goes. So it'll be a paper. I mean, I'm hearing that most people are going to go through a paper ballot, and it's counted. And I mean, you're going to know it in a couple hours. I mean, within 2 hours after that election ends, it's over. And that's integrity. I mean, and you're really voting for it. What that does is it goes for the will of the people. And that's what you're saying here, is that if you can't answer the will of the people, you're in trouble.
And don't forget, towns, counties, etc., they get money from their police force because cops write tickets. They charge fines and fees. They make money off permits and all this other crap. So at the end of the day, in my opinion, there's really truly no need for property tax.
Yeah. There's corruption all the way down to the city councils and the school boards and everything else. So trust me, this has got to be a flush of the whole system. That's why NESARA actually talks about 120 days after it's enacted, fully enacted, that we'll have a new election. And don't think that election is going to be a couple pages. It might be 6 or 7 pages long. I don't know what the number is, but it's going to be a bunch, and you're going to be going, holy cow. You're going to have to do a little bit of research before you walk in there. Research every single person that you're looking at. And not just because he's got a pretty name. I mean, there is a hysterical movie of Eddie Murphy, and his name was exactly like the exiting, congressman. And all he did is put his name out there, and everyone thought it was him, that ex-congressman, for whatever reason, and they voted him in. He had no idea what he was doing. And that's the whole movie basis. And I'm going, that's the stupid that we need to stop. We need to have people, and we need to know what that person really believes, not this garbage of Republican Democrat stuff. None of that stuff is relevant. That's just two sides of the same fence, or both sides of the same fence. Forget it.
My next question for you is, when it comes to driver's licenses, divorce papers, death certificates, how are people going to benefit from those? I guess they're bonds. So how are people going to benefit? Like, how much money do you think each certificate is worth? What do you think?
I think I'm going to have a very unique viewpoint on this, and people won't like it. So I'm just going to tell you that's one of the things I studied more than anything else. Because my mentor, when we first started talking about it, he was talking to me about this in 2010, and he actually emancipated himself from the state. And Will would talk to me about this, but we were talking about this, and I mean, I was like, you're what? You got a bond and your health, I mean, your on your birth certificate and all this other stuff, you know, and there are websites that talk about this from a legal standpoint, that marriage licenses, are licensed for the state. Then you have to like get a divorce through the state. And that stuff is evil. And then you have to have birth certificates so that they have rights over your child. See, that all that stuff is an evil. And so I would 100% agree with that. Now, what are they doing in the bonds? So I would say that, it depends on the person. If you're more successful, your bond might be upwards of $500,000. If you're less successful, it might be a lot lower with that. But they're all based upon an insurance policy. And that insurance policy is going to be deleted. The whole system of it's going to be deleted. So what is the worth of something that was built in fractional basis? Zero. You're going to find when you flip over to the QFS, they're already wiped out. They have nothing else to give you for those bonds. And I know this is not very happy news for a lot of people. They're expecting to get millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm like going, you understand, you are going to benefit by the debt forgiveness. You're going to benefit by no more IRS. You're going to benefit with gold-backed currency that is going to revalue your money. You're going to benefit by prices going down dramatically. You're going to benefit by just court systems. You're going to benefit by having the election laws going and no one on your back, bugging you in the same way. You're going to benefit, but you're not necessarily going to benefit in the way you think you're going to do, because when I went through those research points, and David Straight talks about this, he does some gorgeous stuff on this point, but they're all based upon lie, and they built their own systems, and they built all of their insurance policies, and they're all fake, and they trade them back and forth, and they make money, and they make money even after you're dead. And that's why the election rolls have all these fake people in there. What you don't know is Gore and Bush was the first time of systemic based voting, and it was sick. Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ, was known to go down to the Texas cemetery and get all the names off there and get himself into office. That's that voter F number thing. I don't want to say it out loud here. Don't want to mess with the censor points on there, but all that stuff is inside the sixth system, and so is the bond. And so I would tell you, the QFS is just going to delete it. And what happens with that old system? Nothing. Let me give you an analogy that most of you might not have looked up, but you can go look this up. The American Basketball Association, the ABA, had, I want to say 10 or 12 teams. And only a few of those teams, the Denver Nuggets, the San Antonio Spurs, the Indiana Pacers, the New Jersey Nets, things like that. And there was a few others, but only those teams came into the NBA, and I think it was 75. And so we have those, but what happened to their old teams? I mean, the old teams, they were null and void. They were just closed in bankruptcy. What happens to their new team? I mean, now they had the team of their guys intact, but they're starting afresh in essence in that way. And when you understand the executive orders that Trump did, he's deleting them in bankruptcy. So what is the value of some of that stuff when you go through bankruptcy? When you understand bankruptcy, you realize it's a bunch of nothing. It doesn't matter if I'm on the bottom of the rail and there are hundreds of thousands of claims against a company, and I've only got a $50,000 claim against the company. After they go through their money and they're out of money, there's nothing for me. And that's the reality that's happening. It's not, and you might go, wait a second, where about all that money that we have? That's going to be going toward humanity to help people out. And I know that's not thrilling, but that I'm just telling you what the research has shown me with that.
Now, if somebody filed a bankruptcy within the last couple of years, when NESARA kicks in, will they experience debt forgiveness even though
Yeah.
they recently did a bankruptcy? Will they experience another debt forgiveness with NESARA if they have debt?
Yeah, they will. I mean, and we don't exactly know how that's going to work. I mean, let's give you an example. I mean, because it's hard, it's hard to do a global issue, without, kind of like, I mean, everyone, and what about me? And then people say something, and I'm like, listen, I'm not a lawyer. Don't play one on TV. But let's just put it this way. Let's say you just had a bankruptcy situation and a foreclosure of your house, and you're still in your house. Or you're coming out of your house and it's right at the right time frame. I think that you can go right back through the bankruptcy thing after NESARA and get yourself back in the house. But what about someone, it was 2 years ago, and the house got foreclosed on, it went to the bank and it got sold off to someone else? I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the house is gone in that way. And I'm not saying it's perfect. That's why when people equate it, and the first thing they're going to do when they hear this, that's not fair. I just had a conversation. I did a set of videos, and one of them was about fairness of NESARA. And this guy's railing on me about that's not fair. And I'm going, did you just watch the video about fairness? I'm like, you literally didn't. You're talking about not fair, but you're railing against this. The reality is the bankruptcy things, you still have payments out there. We have the credit, claims, and you owe this much. Now they say you only owe this much as a monthly payment. That stuff's going to go away. Medical debt, oh my gosh, that's a horrible, ugly thing. The systems of the medical system is just disgusting, and that stuff's going to go away too. That stuff sometimes is probably going to get wiped out. And realize that the hospitals have placed themselves in this C-19 kind of silliness, and they have crimes against humanity. They're a direct line of this. And so if you have a debt with a hospital, and like, how many is that? A lot of people in that way. That hospital might be in their bankruptcy reorganization point. They might be still open as a reorganization, but the debt is unpayable and uncollectible in essence. As a business owner, I write off debts all the time. We misfiled a patient, and it was our fault. We did the wrong code, and my staff was like, "What do we do?" I'm like, we write it off. It's a bad debt. The patient doesn't have to pay that because it's our fault. So whose fault is that? It's my fault. I have to write it off, and it's uncollectible. And that's how debts work. I'm valuing a company right this minute who wants to be bought out, and he has 0 bad debts on his books, and his books aren't even complete. And I'm going, that's ridiculous. I mean, first off, there's no returns and there's no bad debts in there. And I'm going, it never happens in the history of the world. No company has those write-offs that they do. The reality is you guys are going to find that those write-offs, and that's what bankruptcy really is a write-off for you. But sometimes they're still taking a charge from you. It's going to get wiped out. But I want to kind of flip a little bit to this. Let's say you had 750 credit, you had 15% debt to income ratio, whatever you make. You can go look at your Experian credit report, and then you lose your job. And then, your income goes down, and then you can't pay your payments, and you go through bankruptcy, and now your credit is sitting at 450. Make up a number, pick any number you want to with that. So what happens when all of your debts get wiped out? Well, your debt to income is 0. So you have no debt, and whatever income you have is you're 100%, in that range, or a 0% debt. The credit system is irrelevant at this point. It's one of the weirdest things. You think your credit score is important. And my mentor back in 2011 was bugging the heck out of me about my credit score. And I was trying to rehab my credit with the business and a whole bunch of other things. And it was getting knocked down. I think it knocked down to like 680 and stuff like that, but it was always 800. And the business debt was in there. And I pushed it back up to about 800. But some people build pride in that. Guys, all those credit scores are going to be completely, utterly meaningless. So how are they ever going to loan money out again? I think what they're going to do is the old system. We sort of talked about this before, but the old system will be, what can you afford? And they'll be looking at your income and what's what's on your budget. So you're going to need to start living in a budget, because, by the way, this debt forgiveness is only going to be a one-time event. So just a kind of thing. And I know that gives a lot of open questions in there. And again, we don't have answers about how that's actually going to work yet.
To the people that keep saying it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. If you want true fairness, if you want true justice, you got to go to God. And plus, it wasn't fair that the Son of God got crucified for performing miracles and giving love.
Exactly.
But we don't live in a perfect world, and it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah,
like I said, you want fairness, and justice, you got to go to God, because you're not going to get it with the United States government, no matter what.
Well, you're not going to get it anywhere. I mean, your mama told you when you're growing up, is life fair? No, stop. Stop. Stop trying to make things fair. I understand, but you need to break yourself of that. And that's goes back to our original point. I mean, we talk about this all the time, that the rich and the poor talk about fairness in taxing. And every time they talk about fairness, they're talking about IRS taxation. That thing's going away. So how do we get fairness? Well, you're going to see a fairness. If you make more money, you're going to spend more in sales tax. If you make less money, you're going to pay less money in sales tax. There you go. So we will need a lot of education, and people like Kevin, you're going to watch his channel and he's going to give you all kinds of information on there. Promise you, it'll help. We need to have a huge amount of education to know what's going on.
On Telegram, a lot of people are messaging me, and they're kind of nervous because there's this new thing on Telegram floating around that banks have 5 years to comply with being Basel IV compliant or something like that. So a lot of people are nervous and they're scared. Oh, we had to wait 4 more years or 5 more years or something like that. What are your thoughts on that?
No, it's not happening. But realize we don't even know all of the Basel IV compliant points. You guys are missing it. January 1's Sunday. Guys, the Basel IV compliance actually is a good thing. It's going to make them do the right things for you. It is not going to take them 5 years, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to be changing situations as we go. We're talking about one. What about credit? I mean, how are you going to do this? They're going to have a whole new training mechanism to train people from the credit reports. How are you going to do that? That's part of Basel IV. I'll bet you $1 million, because once you move to a gold back standard and you have debt forgiveness, it is going to disrupt the snot out of the banks. I've had bankers, more than one banker, at least 3 of them, say to me, how are we going to make money? Because we make money off of debt. I understand, but guess what? You're going to have to learn to make money off of making money. And they go, what do you mean? Like, how do you make money off of making money? By investments. And so, and if you don't have a lot of money, you're not going to care about banks. The other thing that you're missing, if you're looking at this, let's say you make $35,000 a year. You don't even need a bank. I'm not trying to say you can't have a bank. I'm not telling you can or cannot. You don't need one. You don't need a bank to fix all of your stuff. Now, you can have a bank if you want to for savings and other things, but you don't need a bank. Banks have been in the way of every type of situation all the way through. And criminals don't even use banks because they don't want to be regulated in that way. So stop with the worry about the Basel III or Basel IV compliant points. The reality is it's not, it can't get in the way of where we are in this point. And when, you know, the EBS thing and the NESARA stuff comes in into the gold back value and all this other stuff, don't worry about it. The banks are going to have to catch up with one step at a time, just like the legal system. Do you know that the legal system in NESARA has to be rehabbed? We have to delete the bar. When we delete the bar, we're going to have to retrain all the judges and all the lawyers. That's going to take time. If you're talking about the banking in Basel IV, it's going to take time for them to kind of come upward on it. And there's going to be fits and starts. This is going to take effort. Go back and study your history. After we won the Revolutionary War and they left, well, there's a longer conversation of that. We were like, what do we do now? What happens? You got to figure it out yourself, because you want to govern yourself. Fine, you got to do it all yourself. So when the British finally were kicked out, we had to figure out what to do. And that's what we're going to be living with too. We're going to have to, you know, kind of work through the processes. And we have the Constitution, and we have good white hat people, and we have the military. They're going to help us in the transition. But it's going to take us with election points. It's going to take us with, you know, flushing a whole load of these things out and we're going to have to relearn. You need to research this stuff. So that's what I would say.
Now, obviously, NESARA is going to give a lot of financial blessings. Do you think, well, I mean, I think I know your answer, but I just want you to say for the people that are confused, do you think there's going to be a tax on these financial blessings?
No, I don't see it. I mean, the tax on financial blessing is called a capital gains tax. Where is the capital gains tax taken? Income tax. Nope. Sorry, it doesn't come that way. You're going to be moving into a sovereign base. When you're in the QFS, you're in the sovereign base point. And because it's so ingrained in us, that capital gains tax, and we think about, you know, losing some of that stuff. No, and it is going to be the weirdest thing for us. We're like, what's taken out in our check? Now, I do think they're going to take out Medicare and Social Security. I think so. I mean, I don't know that for a fact. I think so. It's going to come out of your taxation, but the FICA and the state stuff, that comes off. Well, there's another part of that. What you just said is like, would they take it off on other things? And the answer is no, they can't, because that is an IRS capital gains tax. There's death tax, that's an income tax. There's, you know, there's taxation of retirement funds. That's all income tax. You got to understand who does it. Once you understand who does it, they have no control over that issue. We're going to be moving into a use tax basis, which is a social, I mean, which is a sales tax point. And by the way, this listed in the Constitution. We can have import taxes, you know, and so import taxes is a taxation so that we're not so worried about Italy bringing their stuff in. We really want us, the population, to make their own stuff and be dependent upon that. Hey, but if a guy wants to go and get Italy leather or whatever it is, well, he's going to pay the import tax fee. You know, so that would be that way on that stuff.
One question that just came to my mind, Intel providers, they talk about a gold treaty. Do you know anything about this gold treaty? Because I know a little bit about it, but not too much.
Yeah, see, and I think that's one of the hardest areas. The gold treaty was the original NESARA documentation in '99. Okay, and some people want, and there's a lot of information about that. That's the one we know most about. But realize that Trump has been adjusting it a little bit at a time ever since 2017 when he got in office. When he was signing people up in the NESARA thing, some of the gold treaty is not exactly going to be in effect. And so it doesn't actually have to apply in the same ways. So, you know, the point that has to happen, so I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about this. But I just want you to kind of understand, like, Zimbabwe. So we're just going to use Zimbabwe as a country. And Zimbabwe has been so depressed in their currency, and they've been stolen from. But that they've had trillions of dollars of diamonds that they found. That's going to increase the economy for them. And when you teach the people how to utilize it, they're going to be a very wealthy country. So what happens is they're going to have a lot more power because of their currency point. And so we don't want to devalue their country. We want to revalue their country, or we want to increase that value to what would be equalized. So if this country over here, X country like Germany, and we have Zimbabwe and Germany have to come up to the same value. But the reality is every country is going to come up in value. It's just some of them are lower than the other ones. So one of the things that they were doing since 2017, and frankly, they've been doing it for a while, is realizing what the GDP, the gross domestic product of each country, based upon what the population and the ability of the population to do something for their country. And one of the things that's going to happen is that, we're worried about people coming over the border. Frankly, when you show NESARA stuff, people are going to want to go back to Mexico. They don't want to be in America, really. They want more opportunity in America. But the reality is they go back home, they're with their family and their friends. And they're going to find the peso comes up in value because, and they're going to go, I don't need to go to America. I can go to America if I want to. If I want to see the Alamo, go ahead. But they're not going to come to America in the same way. So it solves a lot of this stuff. But what we're going to have to do, some of the humanitarian funds that were built in, is to teach each of these countries how to take care of themselves, because the three-letter agencies have destroyed them. And so we need to teach them, how do you have pride in what you're doing? How do you learn to build a well? How do you learn to make the food? How do you not have GMO kind of food, that something has real seeds to it? How do you do all these different things? And Scott's not going to help you with that one, because I can't teach you any of that stuff. But there are people that are going to be out training that stuff. And you guys might find yourself in a different place. You guys might go, I love building houses, let's say. Maybe you're building houses in South America. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but maybe that would be a cool thing. And people are so appreciative of you, and you're making good money off of it. That's awesome. You're teaching the people how to really do it. We need to have that. And then they can do it on their own, and they're building up their stuff, and you start seeing nicer and nicer houses. It's a great thing. And that's the whole point, that we're trying to rise all boats here. And so the gold treaty, some of the gold treaty was talking about old things that they were doing, but again, things have changed since 99, and they always adjust, and there's new technologies, and the quantum financial system is that newer technology point that helps us have that freedom in there. So the gold currency, the gold treaty has some ideas, and people have some ideas in there, but not all the points are actually going to translate over, because there's new things that we've learned, and they're always changing with that. That's what happens to economies too.
I'm not 100% sure if I asked you this question. I'm maybe 50% sure I did, but the question is, would you be able to explain the history of the Chinese elder family?
Yeah, I don't know if I could do all of it, but I can tell you a couple things. I want to just throw something out at you. They have been fighting against the elite idiots for thousands of years. So this has been a very long war here. Okay, and the Chinese elders, and frankly, it's from all different countries. So don't just think it's Chinese elders that we stop right there. Some people want to stop at the dragon family, and that's part of it, but that isn't the whole thing. There are people from all the different nations, good people, and they're not just Christians, they're not just not Christians. They're normally pretty godly people, but that's not only the only relevance there. These are people that are sick and tired of the lies. I want you to realize it in different ways. Now, I call them the anti-cabal. They call them, I mean, versus the cabal versus the anti-cabal. You would say the white hat's over here and the black hat's over there. But I want to throw some things out with you. And if you don't know your history, you need to start researching it. Rodney Howard Brown has a book called, and it's easier as an audiobook, Killing of Uncle Sam. Killing of Uncle Sam. Go get that audiobook. It'll be powerful. But I want to show something with you. MacArthur is in World War II. General MacArthur he's in the Philippines. Why is he in the Philippines? I mean, it's a very important post. Why does why do the Japanese come into the Philippines and there's this Bataan death march? And then they take over this tiny little island. What are they doing there? And then MacArthur's, gets off, he goes to Australia, and then they start, doing the island hopping of World War II. And then he's pictured, and he gets out of the boat and he walks in the water, and he's walking through the water, and his pants are all wet, and he walks on the Philippines. He doesn't do that with any other nation. I mean, any other island. He doesn't do that with Corregidor. He doesn't do with Okinawa, and he's part of all those operations. He doesn't do with anyone but the Philippines. It's because the Philippines had ancient level gold. And it was an ancient war between the two of them. Give you another place, Vietnam. Why do the French in the late 50s come in and have a war with North Vietnam, the communists, and the South Vietnamese? And why is there a war? And then America, why is America in the 60s in Vietnam? People were asking this question. And it was a great question that the baby boomers of the time were asking. They're like, why are we there? And it was a legitimate question. Now they started, beating up the people that came home from Vietnam. It was the wrong statement. The reality is, why are we in Vietnam? Why was France in Vietnam? Why were we in Korea? Why were we in these different countries? And it's all related to the money. These are ancient wars that we've been fighting in different ways. And so it's about the money. And that's what's been happening for generations with that. Why do we have this problem in the Middle East? Well, first off, that's a spiritual war too. But part of it is a war against the white hats and black hats over years. And I promise you, one of the biggest things we need to do, and we talked about this before, but we need to have real good documentaries about this stuff. What the heck was going on in the Philippines? We really don't know. But I know it was about the gold. That was one major area. So that's telling you the gold is really important. And we've been off the gold standard for a very long time, and they hate it. The black hats hate it because we want to peg the gold to a value of the money, and they want to make up a number. That's the key element. That's what the Great Reset is about, is they want to make up a number, and the NESARA people want to have it pegged to a number, and it makes the elites completely crazy. And that's why those two are completely divergent of one another. Hope it gives you some answer there.
Yes, thank you. What is going to happen to overdrafts once NESARA kicks in? And if we're very close to NESARA, why are credit card companies still handing out credit cards?
Oh, they're going to keep doing it until the last second. And I just think it's the sickness of the system. I mean, I'm going to give you an example. World War I starts in 1914, ends on 11/11 at 11 a.m. in 1918. Do you know that at 9 a.m., the peace treaty has been signed for days, and they're still lobbing shells at one another, and it suddenly goes quiet? In Vietnam, the exact same thing happens and until the very last second. What are they doing? It's they just want to get one more bit of money out of the people with this. And that's what they're doing when the credit cards things happen. So yeah, I mean, I wish I could say, and remind me of, is that answering your question, or is there something more in there?
The overdrafts.
Oh, the
So you're
overdraft fees. So the fee systems, I mean, I will look back at the fee systems in 2020. Um, the banking people made billions of dollars more than they have ever made on banking fees. It's sick. That's the sickness of the system. And frankly, in the past, if you were you couldn't overdraft in a thing. They would have said, your credit card's denied, or your credit's denied, and we're not doing that. People, I will say this, and not trying to defend them at all, but people need to really understand their money. Most people don't balance their checkbook, and I'm not saying they even have a checkbook. They don't even know what they have in their accounts. They don't know how much is on their credit card. They don't do an audit of this. As a business owner, I require my accountant to reconcile every single account once a week. And people go, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just wait once a month? And so most people don't even run financials on their business. I'm like, going, that makes me crazy. I want to know in that week how much I have. Reconciliation means to make it work. It's an accounting term. And people need to have control of their money, but they need to like kind of learn, hey man, you can't like go write checks when you don't have any money. You can't go off and start buying things that you don't have the money for. That kind of mentality is going to go away, and it's going to mess people up because they've been living on the credit system. I have people that live on no debt, and people who live on massive debt. They're going to have to, the red pill's going to come for them too. Yeah, you get your credit cards paid off and everything, but now you go, wait a second, I can't afford that. What? Well, maybe you don't need to go buy that. And I'm not talking about essential items, but you have a 65-inch TV and now you want a 95-inch TV. Sucks to be you. Maybe you should go save up for that. And we're going to have to really relearn that stuff. And so that's a highlight of the system that I think, people like Kevin, people like me, other people are going to be helping you to learn this kind of process of really taking charge of your money, which means taking responsibility in there. And so I think that the overdraft fees have been sick system, but still, we don't need to have that anymore. We need to have, hey man, live within your means.
Now, a lot of people are talking about on Telegram, obviously, we're going to have some sort of scripted scare event in January. And a lot of people seem to think that we're going to taste the CBDC stuff, the central bank digital coin stuff. So for the people that are nervous and scared about us experiencing the CBDC stuff, what would you say to them?
We already have. Can I tell you? I mean, I would not have believed this. If you pulled me back in time, I'd have said, no, Nasara is just going to take over, and Trump would win the election, the 2020 election, and Nasara would happen a little bit before, a little bit after, and kind of thing. We're all good. We are living in what it would be like if the central bank Great Reset was really to happen. Do you understand that? We're living in a type of inflation with incredibly high pricing and all this stuff. But here's the thing: the fix is available for us. And when the NESARA thing does, it fixes all this junk. We're already living there. Don't listen to the idiots that are trying to tell you they're going to have a scare event for that. It doesn't have to happen. We're already in the middle of it. You're not seeing it. It's there. Now, the reality is the scare event is a big global event, and it's not about money. It is going to be a military thing to start the EBS, the emergency broadcast message, or EAM, whatever. It's not about the thing. The central banks have no power. Do you know that the central banks, specifically the Fed, were at a loss this year? A loss? They've never, ever been at a loss in the history of the world. It's because we're taking every dollar from them that they possibly have, and they're going crazy. That's why they come up with this $1.7 trillion thing. It's all fake, guys. It's fake, fake, fake. I mean, how many times have you seen Biden walk by a white wall right over here and his head disappears? CGI. I mean, like, you know, I want to put it this way. My old business partner, Ivan, passed away 9 years ago or so, and wonderful guy, but he was a chronic alcoholic, and I would say an unrepentant alcoholic. And my problem with him wasn't just the alcohol; it was the lies he did to protect the alcoholism. And after a while, I watched him, and he would protect his lies, and his lies had to protect his lies a little bit more and more and more protection around the lies. That's what the cabal, that's what these elite idiots are doing. That they're protecting their lies, and they just keep saying more and more lies, and we're going, dude, that doesn't even fit. And they make things up more and more and more, and we're calling them on it, and it's making them crazy because we never did it before. The reality is this is tipping them over. I mean, you and I were talking about this beforehand, but my channel's got 30,000 people on it on my YouTube channel. You know, like, it's all organic, and we spent money to push the channel in different areas, but I didn't stuff it with any fake subscribers at all. And but we got us up on the search engines of different things of YouTube kind of thing to get there. But the point is that they're crazy. They don't know how to deal with this, with these truthers that have just tens and hundreds and thousands of views, and they have to spend millions of dollars to get the same thing. They don't know what to do with us. They can't figure it out. I mean, it's some bumpkin guy that they look at, some idiot from Tulsa, and they're going, who is this guy? And how is he getting more views than our pretty studio with the gorgeous, perfect jowled line woman? And you're going, because we're blowing their story up. And so when I hear people talking about like a scare event for the CBDC, dude, you don't understand. They have no power. They're taking the gold over, but it's only a fiction of this. It's the banks, but the banks have been reorganized under the new government, the new governments of each one of them, Iraq or Iran or whatever the country we're talking about, Russia. They have no power. They're already done, but you're living through the crazy of the system as if this would actually be there, because that's how people change. They've got to feel the pain. And I'm sorry, I hate it. I hate every minute of it, but you've got to feel the pain to really make you go, you know what, I need to make a change. That's part of what I believe in there.
So in regards to arrests, do you think the military is looking for people now and arresting people now, or do you think they have to wait until like an EBS?
Oh, they've already been doing it. I can promise you. I live in nothing area, South Tulsa area. I mean, it's like it's a bedroom community, and there is nothing down south of me. So where I'm pointing is kind of southeast. And I mean, there's nothing over there. And I hear helicopters at 3 and 4 in the morning. Now, what you have to understand about helicopters at 3 or 4 in the morning is, first off, there's no air traffic that should be going over. That no one's necessarily flying in that. What they're doing is catching people at the most vulnerable time of their circadian rhythm. This is a military tactic. And I've heard them go on and on and on for literally 2 or 3 years. And we're in Tulsa. It's happening everywhere. Why are there food plants blowing up in different areas? Why did you see that that one in Iran? I mean, the huge destruction of it was a huge destruction about 2.5 years ago, or a year and a half ago, something that was off of a coastline area in the Middle East. What was going on? All that stuff is destroying the capabilities of the enemy. So they've already been doing it. And trust me, one of the things I've always said is, like, let's say you have the big George Soros guy and you think he's still out there doing the stuff. Here's what they've done. They've been chopping off the legs of him. And then he doesn't know what happens. And so his smart guys go away, and then he has to hire another dude, another dude, another dude. And what these guys don't know is many of those people that he hired are the white hats underneath him. And they're faking working for him. They're double agents. It's crazy cool. I've been talking to people about this, and I'm learning this stuff and going, you got to be kidding me. That's how you fix them. They're smart people, but they can't control the stuff that's underneath them. So what you do is you just chop the legs out of underneath them, and until they got nothing left. There are pictures. There's a picture of an Australian physician, very smart woman, who talks all about the masks, left and right. She goes on and on and on about the masks. And there's a great researcher. This is a truther I think about. Researcher, truther, and I'm not as researcher as this person is. I research, but not like her. And she literally has 16 to 20 different pictures of the woman, doesn't have a mask on, doesn't even have it pulled down. She's like leaning in with her friends in all these different places, destroying her narrative. And like, you go, wait a second, where's the PR agent that should be walking around with her? I mean, she's an important person in the Australian government. I don't even know her name. I don't even care. Just the same kind of thing. Where are the smart people to go, you know what? That's a bad look. I want you to get your mask put on. There are videos of guys that go, okay, get your mask on. So they put their mask on and then they get on camera. And then suddenly, who's taking the picture and putting it out there about how they were putting their mask on, and then they pull their mask off? Who's taking the picture? White hats. It's telling you, you're trying to peel back the layers so you can see this stuff. Trust me, there's so many of them that have been replaced. And promise you, Biden is the perfect one. He is not the same guy. I mean, I've got video after video after video on my channel. I mean, that's not the same dude. It truly isn't. I mean, and I'll give you an example of this. Now, I am an audiologist, which means I'm an expert in ears, okay? So I want you just to look at my ears, and you're going to see that it's somewhat connected at the earlobe, okay? So this is called the pinna in medical terminology, and this is the earlobe, and you know that part. Now, there are genetic points that happen. You can either have an earlobe that's connected or unconnected, right? And so I've gotten physicians and everyone else totally sideways. When you see pictures of Biden 12 years ago or whatever, his earlobe is, one's connected and the other one's not connected. Now I'm blanking out. I'd have to look at my pictures, which one's which, but it's literally not the same person. And there's mask lines on people. The Queen of England has a mask line, the new Queen of England, mask line right down here. Kamala, mask lines. Nancy Pelosi, we know for a fact she was arrested beforehand. At the idiot's inauguration on January 20th, Roy Blunt, a Republican from Missouri, is walked out with his hands behind his back, and a woman is holding his arms, is going out. He's been arrested. Nancy, at that same day, was told, "You come over here and don't answer any of their questions." Okay, I don't answer their questions, and she walks with them. They were getting arrested on the spot. These people, many of them have been replaced. That's the game theory of this whole thing. They got idiots going on. I can prove to you 18 ways to Sunday that these people, I mean, they're not in the White House. They're in some Atlanta White House. When it says Castle Rock and the Q stuff, it means the Castle Rock studios in LA, the ones where they've done all the videos of Dave and American President and House of Cards. Are all in those studio things. What are they doing? There's CGI going on. Why? Because they're arrested. That doesn't mean that there won't be arrests that will happen afterward. There are low-level thugs we got to take out. You'll start seeing some of that stuff. But how do you make a movie? Let me just put it this way. I want you to think. I want your viewers to think this way. The Matrix. Neo has got a full head of hair, a little bit like mine. You can see my like lack of hair on the head, right? So Neo's got kind of a shorter haircut, and but he's, it's in the 90s when the movie is taking place, right? And in the Matrix, you see him when he's inside, he's got a full head of hair. And then outside, he's got like a bald head or a stubble on his head. And you go, okay, so think about how they filmed it. Well, the beginning scenes, the beginning of the movie, they filmed every single thing, even at the end of the movie, if they're all inside the Matrix, those all filmed all at once. And then later on, they shave his head, and then he grows some stubble, just like it would normally happen. And suddenly they do all those ones and the next part of it, and then they cut the film in the right way, right? So it's called splicing. When they talk to you about we're watching a movie, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing some splicing going on. And you're going, well, that makes me crazy. Why haven't they done anything? It's because they're still doing some of the efforts in the background, okay? You're seeing some of the movie, trying to help you wake up, but you're also having to see the other edge of this, that they're still doing some stuff. And it doesn't happen until everything is in line. When they do it, then they'll show you the movie. Then you'll see the ending credits, which are really the movie. And so you're going to sit there and go, yeah, because you've already seen all that stuff. You don't need to know about Hillary. You don't need to know about Bill Clinton. You don't need to know about it. You already know about them, right? Almost all your audience already knows about it. But and there's this gorgeous meme, and it's from like one of those zombie movies or whatever. And there's this theme with this one woman's just like this, another woman's like, and the other guy's going, guess what? You're the Anons going, I'm waiting for that one. They're going to be freaking out. And I see them on my Twitter channel specifically calling me an idiot. And the reality is they're going to be freaking out after this. And that was actually the topic of my book, Revelations of Red Pill. People are going to freak out when they realize what's happened, but it's already happened. Okay. But the arrest, most of the arrest, huge majority of the arrest, when they get to that critical point where they really don't have to worry about it anymore, then it's ready. It's ready to show you the real thing.
Now, when do you think the military will take care of, let's say, mayors, city council members, Beetlejuice?
Yeah. I think many of them, by the way, how come you haven't heard them? I haven't heard them out there in the world. How come? Beetlejuice is a great one in the Chicago mayor, but have you really heard your mayor? I'm not saying you have or you haven't. Have you heard your mayor? Have you really heard him or her talk? Have you just seen like a newspaper article or an article, somewhere, or some little video? Or, again, do you know what you think you've seen? I'm just telling you, do you think you've seen it correctly? And if you think you have, I'd say to you, maybe you haven't seen it. I would say one of the easiest things to do is to take out those city councils and the real sick ones. Okay. And I'd be surprised if most of them haven't been taken out of that. So I think the easiest ones is the little city council, the little small mayor in my town. And GT Bynum is mayor in Tulsa. That boy pushed the mask mandates and all the other stuff, and he's gone. He is toast. And he's gonna be hoping to be a mop at a grocery store. Now he's going to be probably in some major, if not 20 years in a federal prison. He's gone. So these people.
So is he gone right now, or is he going to be gone?
Do I know for sure if he's gone right now? No, I just know he will be. And I guess I don't sit around worrying about that. Does that make sense? And I'm not trying to, belittle, but sometimes we worry about stuff we can't really control. The best quarterback I'd ever seen is Peyton Manning, not because he was the most talented, because the guy he had a photographic memory. And That guy stayed in the moment. I mean, I've watched him in the past, and there's a part where he goes to Tennessee, University of Tennessee, his alma mater, and he's talking about a play, and it goes on for 2 hours. The same play. He keeps backing up and he keeps talking about it, and he's living in the moment. And more of the coaches, staff, and all the other people start coming in and going, wait, we need to take notes. And they're writing notes furiously on this one stupid play. And the reality is sometimes we're worried about things that we can't control. The Bible says in Matthew, it says, why are you worried about things that, you're going to go to that city, you're going to do this or that, but you don't even know what's going to happen today. Don't worry about tomorrow. It'll take care of itself. And I think sometimes we're too focused on, whether the Tulsa mayor's done or whatever. And I'm like, listen, I know that there is a justice coming down. I'm going to put it to you this way. You don't want to be those guys. We many times have said, I want to be the Tulsa mayor or the whatever person. I want to be the rich person, or I want to be the person that's on stage singing the music, or whatever that point is. I'm going to tell you right now, you should be happy where you are, because there is a train coming for them, and it's really ugly. And because when the truth comes out, they're going to be on the wrong side of the truth fence. And I mean, it is coming for them, and it is going to be brutal. We're talking about military justice is a very brutal thing. It is not going to be it's not going to be these long trials. It's going to be a few hour trial. And actually Trump talked about it. He talked about it, 2-hour trials. It's over.
So I think it's just a matter of time before these
So we find out.
Council members, until I think it's just a matter of time until they get justice. I mean, we get justice and they pay the price.
Yeah, but when they could have already happened. It could be happening now. It'll be happening next week.
We don't know.
I don't know, and I'm not worried about it that much, because I swear to you, they're in the eye of the hurricane. When things come out, I will tell you this way: when this is why crime never pays. The real crime doesn't really pay, because everyone really wants truth to come out. No one doesn't want truth. I don't care if you're left wing, right wing. You want real things. You want real truth, real facts behind you. And I promise you, you guys are worried about the left wing, dummy kids or whatever, dummies people, the Karens and stuff like that. Don't worry about them. When this thing comes out, they are going to be the ones on the steps of the capitals that we're going to have to hold them back and go, hey man, don't break the glass anymore. Okay. I'm going to be going to the Capitol, and you're going to be going to the Capitol. We need to have our voice heard, but they are going to be, oh my gosh, you have no idea how much they're going to be so pissed off at those people for being lied to. Yeah, you're not going to want to be there. You're not going to want to be in the middle of that. And I promise you, you're going to have to go, hey, listen, I didn't do it. I'm going to prove I didn't do it. That's what's really going to happen. And the pendulum is going to swing like crazy. By the way, when pendulums swing, they swing hard to the other way. Go look at your history. You'll see that.
How would you explain the Federal Reserve System to somebody that doesn't understand, I guess, the world of finance?
Basically this, the Federal Reserve is a private organization, and that they make the money, and they make the money policies. The Constitution says that only Congress can make the money. So how do they exist? They're outside the Constitution. How do we take them out? By the Constitution. Does that make sense? I mean, that's the simplest point. They are the ones that run the 13 Fed bankers, are the 13 major big banks. And so they're the ones making the rules, and they expect you to follow them, pay your bills and pay your taxes and they don't pay their bills. They don't pay their taxes. They don't pay any of that stuff. They make you pay for it. And when they want to make up something, they want another house, or they want to build out a whole new Federal Reserve, property kind of thing, or they want to go on a vacation, they just make you pay for it. They just come up with a new thing to make you pay for it. And you go, when you talk about fair, they think they create all the rules. And the answer is what we're going to do. This is the thing that makes you crazy, and this is why it's taken so long, is the military, white hat, and Trump are making them live within the rules of the system, and they're not going to like it. The Fed is just a whole bunch of idiots, and they're foreign controlled, and we're going to kick their butts 6 ways to Sunday, and they're not going to make it. I mean, and frankly, those are the first ones you actually take care of, because those are the power brokers behind it. People say, you know, George Soros and whatever is still around. There are other ones you don't even know the names of. Those guys are gone. You think Janet Yellen is she's just a place head. I'm telling you what, Steve Mnuchin is the chairman of the Fed, the real chairman of the Treasury. Janet Yellen is just the whack job. You think that I'm blanking out the Fed chairman guy. I know for a fact it's Judy Shelton. She is the Fed chairman for the future. Now, what will happen to the Fed is they're already collapsed underneath the Treasury. When Trump comes out and brings out the NESARA thing, and however he's going to say it, you know, the Treasury will make the money, like the Constitution says, and the Fed will kind of be an advisory board for the next year. So I say, someone got really sideways with me. Like I said, the Fed is dead. The Fed is dead for what they do. That's the first thing that they had to attack. They had to knock the knees out of the Fed. And the Fed is that private agency that's been doing all the gross things of the world. You're going to find the Fed created World War I. They created World War II. They created the Korean War. They created the Vietnam War. They created all these wars. They created 9/11. They're the creation of this stuff. And you have to make them pay by legal mechanisms. So I hope that gave you a quicker kind of viewpoint of that.
So the person on TV that is in charge of the Fed, if I'm not mistaken, is Jerome Powell, right?
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, I could not remember his name off the top of my head.
So is he a black hat, or what is he?
I don't know. And I had this comment with one of my other people that is blanking her name out. I'm trying to pull her up here, but she was asking me this question. Anina, yeah, and her name is Anna, and she asked me this question about like all these different people who might be black hats in the truther movement and white hats, and I'm like, I don't care. I mean, first off, I don't know. I don't know if that guy is a black hat, white hat. I don't know some of those people, but my thing, if I were in charge, this is me in charge, I would have turncoats everywhere. Go backward, and I referenced this point before. Before we launched the D-Day landings of June 6, 1944, we turned every single Nazi agent into a double agent, so that Hitler was getting mis and disinformation left and right, mostly misinformation. The biggest point about misinformation is that it's purposeful. It's purposeful. They still believed that they were going to come on the Pas de Calais, and really we were coming through Normandy. Even 3 weeks after we had already landed easily in there, they had their Panzer Division up there. Why? Misinformation. If I were picking this, I'd take Jerome Powell and I would hold him over with, I won't use the terms, but basically I'd hold him over with fires under him. And you will do what I say, and you will do it when I say to do it. That's what we're doing here. Sometimes I think what we're doing is, you know, I want you to think about, if many of you haven't had kids, but if you had kids, as they grow older, at first you give them this much room, you know, and then when they start walking around, you kind of limit, you know, that's why you have a playpen, okay? And then you open it up a little bit more, and you open it up a little bit more, and they can still move around there. That's the freedom kind of thing. Good parents realize that's the easiest way to do this, okay? You do that with a dog too. I'm not trying to say the same thing, but you don't let the dog out to the areas that you really want to like chew on the furniture or poop on the carpet thing. You know, if you're going to leave for several hours, you put them in the in the kitchen kind of thing, right? You limit their case. Well, I think what we're seeing right now is a limiting, and we're seeing more and more limiting. And they have only the freedom to go right into this little spot here. And you think that they're moving around in there and they're doing something. They're causing havoc in some ways, but how much havoc are they really causing? Now, I'm not saying they're not causing havoc. This is a war. There are bad things happening around us, but it's better than you think. But in other ways, it's what's been happening in the background is worse. So there's a way of controlling them, and they think that they're still in charge. That's the funny thing. And by the way, if you read the Bible and read book of Revelation, Satan believes he's going to win up until the end. And it says in Revelation 12, he says, "Woe to you, earth. The devil has come down with great wrath, knowing that his time is short." I think that we're seeing a little bit of a type and shadow event of this. They know their time is short, and they're going bonkers. I mean, they're breaking all the rules they never broke in the past. And that tells you how desperate they are for that. Because they would never throw packages out like the $1.7 trillion. They would never bring Zelensky in with an idiot flag like that. They'd never do any of that stuff. And it's because Q talks about this, they're stupid. So that's what I'd say.
What are your thoughts on tax season 2022?
I think we're going to get that back. Now, I've said this. While I don't believe you're going to get interest back or any of these.
I'm sorry, 2023, not 2022.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, in essence, we're almost jumping into that. Basically, 23 means what your taxes were for 22. Okay, this is the only kind of area that I kind of think might occur. Okay, and even that's not fair. Okay, but let me explain it. Let's say we have two people. One person makes 50,000, the other person makes 100,000. Okay, and this person that makes 100,000 is paying more taxes. I mean, let's just say both of them are employees. They don't have a lot of write-offs, so this person is paying more in taxes every year. Okay, whether they take out enough pre-tax dollars in their income tax or they don't, whatever. When it all washes out, they this person's paying more taxes. I personally believe that the IRS has been taken over, and I have lots of information that they've been taken over since 2020. I personally will allow in my thought process, and I don't know this for sure, but I think that what you'll find is when NESARA comes out, you just might get all of your taxes back from 2021, and 2022. And I don't think it takes April 15th. I think that's an irrelevant date. I just think you might just find you just get money back. Now, again, it's not going to be fair because the $50,000 guy doesn't get as much money as the $100,000 guy. Sorry, didn't say it was fair. I'm just telling you, we're gonna pay back what it is. So how does that work? I don't know. I just think it's not going to be relevant. Now, they might want you to file taxes, because if you haven't filed, then what are you going to get back? I mean, if you haven't paid any taxes to the system, then what are they going to pay you back? But if you had paid taxes, they're probably going to ask you to file. And they're not going to care about April 15th. They're going to go file now. Because, but by the way, this year was bad for us, my business. And I mean, it was really tough. You guys think that it's easy for me? No, I was like a minus 37,000 at least. I had a lot of write-offs and a lot of stuff. It's been tough. I mean, people get affected by fear. So when I file taxes, this kind of year, I'm going to get all my taxes back, even if the NESARA wasn't ever going to happen. I'd still get all my taxes back. It's just how it works when you're a business owner. But when you're a business owner, if you make a profit, you have to pay more in taxes for that. So you have to save up enough money to be able to pay that. So I file my taxes as quick as I can. I mean, basically, when my income tax is done, or my financials are done, and I get all my paperwork, man, middle of February, I'm already over there getting my tax return done. So I think what you're going to find is as soon as you get all your financials in order, you're going to want to go over there and file your taxes and get your money back. Best way to do it.
So for the people that are worried about filing taxes this year and paying more income tax,
don't worry about it. I don't believe that. I think this thing's almost done. You're going to get your money back especially for 22. I can promise you that one. I think that's coming, but I'll allow for last few years. So I don't think it's going to be 10, 20 years. Stop. I mean, first off, let me put it to you this way. Is it good for every person in America to have $5 million? Make up a number. Would it be good if everyone in America had $5 million? Well, gosh, that would be so fair. I mean, would anyone work? I don't even know the Disney movie. Kevin, maybe you know this, but it's the little robot that goes around on Earth, and it's in the future, and he's picking up all the trash, and it takes up to the people, and they're on their space station, and they have to like ride around on their fat chairs because they're all too fat, whatever it is.
I have no idea.
What's that?
I have no idea.
It's a Disney movie, and your people get it. It's an idiot movie. The reality is, that's what they want, is that system, and people wouldn't work if they didn't have to work. But here's what happened: prices would go through the roof. Everyone would know you'd have money to pay for it, so everything would be so priced out it would be funny, and no one would be able to buy anything. So food wouldn't happen. The reality is, yeah, I mean, I'd love to have a payback of all kinds of money and everything, but it just doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't occur. It's going to be good, but you need to work for it, and that's actually a good thing for the population with that.
Let's see. Next question. Have you seen the new currency?
No, I haven't. I mean, there's a big conversation about that. I mean, we have the US dollar. I believe that some people say that they've seen the US Treasury note, and that's called rainbow currency. I don't know, maybe. What I'm hearing, and again, this is a rumor point, is the US note is going to look close to the US dollar. That's what I hear. But it's not going to say, backed by the Fed or Federal Reserve. It's going to say backed by Treasury. Now, will they come up with the new note? I don't know. But I know bankers have told me they've seen it. So, that's what and I've heard many sources tell me that same thing.
Have they described to you what it looks like?
No, not really. Because now we're moving into NDA, and I really don't want someone to violate their NDA. So when I ask a question of someone who I think is under an NDA, of different ways, they go, "You probably can't tell me, but this is da 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 da." And I just want them to go, that they didn't violate anything. I said all the words. We don't know, how would they know that they said anything? So I ask yes or no questions, like 21 questions kind of thing. I'll ask you yes or no questions and let them do it. I've had too many of them. I know they're under NDA. I know they've already gone through their new system with the quantum financial system, and the money is sitting in there waiting for it to be released. And but the banker people, they don't think like you do. They don't hear the word quantum financial system. Maybe Basel IV is talking to them about QFS, maybe, but they never heard NESARA. They don't hear the term, so don't ask them that stuff. Okay, you just load them up, and when you're asking a teller, what does a teller know? It's the bank managers who would know this, and if they're in the know, why would they tell you and violate their own NDAs to get fired? So special, and you got to respect those people too in that way.
Now, a lot of people, some people, well, not a lot of people, some people, they lose hope, they lose faith. So what recent stories are you able to share to restore people's hope and faith?
I just put something on there just 5 minutes ago on my channel. It's on Telegram. It's Nasara. Dr. Scott Young Nasara, and you can put it in the description if you can. But basically, I mean, this woman is like, her name is Lisa, and she just showed how her all of her debt was washed away, and she showed her credit report, every single bit of it. Showed $17,000 on her Jeep, washed away. My sister had $5,000 to go on a tractor, washed off. I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of people telling me that it's the QFS going in there. Now, let me let me say something to you about faith, belief, and hope. Okay, Jesus comes up with 5,000 people, and he says, if you'll have the faith, you got to really read it in the Greek because it's got to be seen in the Greek. If you'll have the faith, you can make this happen. So he says, he takes, 5 loaves and whatever, 2 loaves, 5 fish, whatever it is. And he takes a small number of people. And I remember having this conversation when I was in college, 20 years old. And this professor was like, it really wasn't 5,000 people. And I said, how many people does it take for a miracle to happen? I said, with a few loaves, a few fish, what is it, 40 people? So if there's 100 people, would it be a miracle? He goes, well, yeah. And I said, so do you think he actually said about 5,000? What he means is 5,000 men in Greek. So he's basically saying that could be 20,000, 25,000 people. So it was a miracle if it was 100 people or 25,000, right? So he's basically saying, if you have the faith, you can make this thing happen. Now, faith is the hope, or faith is the substance of things hoped for and the promise of things unseen. It's like when you have the evidence at a trial. So like if I had, this is my book of evidence, and I walk into the trial and I've got my evidence down, I know my evidence, I know my substance, I'm still hoping for the jury and the judge to judge correctly upon my evidence. So I have faith in the system. That's what that means, okay? Now, Jesus in the scriptures of Luke, it's literally weeks, days, I don't know how many, a little bit of time later, that he feeds the 4,000, and he gets kind of pissy here. And you going, oh, Jesus wouldn't get pissy. Yes, he did. And so he's going, and it says it, and you kind of read it, and you think it says the faith. And what he really is saying, if you had the belief, faith is pistis, the word of pistis, and belief is pisteo. They're in the same basic category. What happens for belief is that if you've seen it happen, then you believe on it, right? And so it becomes a cyclical point. So I just want you to think about it. If you had $1,000 of faith and it invested and it paid off, the payoff is the belief point. Then you take it and reinvest that belief into more faith. You take the 2,000 and make 4,000. 4,000 and make 6,000, or 8,000, and on and on and on. What happens is that people have only hope. Hope is a temporary situation. My Denver Broncos, I walked into the season, thought they were going to have a great season, hope, and I thought they'd have a great season, and they're 4-11. They're a complete dumpster fire. So my hope in this season is destroyed, right? But not my faith necessarily. Now you might go, well, again, this is not a perfect analogy, but I get my hope destroyed many days. Okay, when something doesn't happen the way I think it should go in this movement, I get my hope destroyed. But the reality is my faith is in the evidence that I have. And I've seen it play out over and over again. People getting their debts paid off. The BRICS nations are gold backed, precious metal backed. That's the evidence and belief that I have. And so here's what happens. Your hope needs to sit in the middle like a fence line around your belief and faith. And if you build up your belief and faith, your hope sits in there and it doesn't get destroyed anymore. But people have been living on their hope, and they get their hope up, and then they're down the dumpster. Trust me, I'm down the dumpster too. But you know what I start doing? I get up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. I pray, and most of the time I'm praying in silence. I just drop in silence and just wait for God to talk. And when you pray and you just let him speak, he'll start talking. He's talking. You just have him listening. Trust me, he loves you. He's so in love with you. It's not funny. It's not just love you like I love you. He's in love with you. You are called the bride of Christ. If you want to be in that, it takes that belief and faith with that. I have belief in this system because I know it's working. The Great Reset tried to fake the mark without the beast. God just said, no, it's already done. I promise you that stuff, that's my belief and faith in there. And nothing can destroy my hope because I keep it in the middle of it. Doesn't mean that there are times I kind of, it wavers a little bit, but I keep going back. I keep reminding the Lord. Here's the thing in the Old Testament, it said the God of Isaac, Abraham, Jacob, all this other stuff. And you go, what are they talking about? What he was basically doing, what that guy was saying is that your belief, he was going, the God that did all these things for Abraham and Isaac and all these other dudes, I'm going to take that involved in me. See, I'm a person who was magically, miraculously healed 3 years ago. When I get down, I just tell God, hey man, I remember when you did this. I remember when you did this. I remember when you did this. What I'm doing is I'm speaking faith by my belief, because I'm taking the things I believe. It says you speak it with your mouth and believe it with your heart. By the way, we should be doing that more often. Okay. That's why I used the thing of Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning stayed in his belief that he knew he could get this thing done. And it might be an ego point too, and it has ego in there, but it's like, I'm going to stay in the moment. And too many people are like focused on the future and freaking out about the future, or pissed off at the past, and they're letting that control them. Throw those things away. Focus on the now. When you start doing that and you remind God of who he is and what he's done for you, it actually activates things in you. And people go, how do you do that? I've done it for a long time, but I've watched him work miracles in my life. And I mean, I've had him pay off debts that I don't know how he paid it off. And you're going to see that. And this thing is going to, when it hits, it is going to release amount of faith and belief in people. And they're going to go, what just happened? When the belief comes in, I know everyone wants to talk about med beds and all this other stuff. I'm like going, you won't need med beds. Med bed would be your God. You won't need them. You're going to go, you did a miraculous thing. Can you do a miraculous thing to my knee? People get healed. You really want to do the greatest things in the world? That's what we're going to do. And it says that in the Gospels. I mean, you think I did great things, but wait till I'm gone. You're going to do bigger things than I did. That's what Jesus said. That's how I do it.
And that's hard to believe because, I mean, Jesus sacrificed himself. And I mean,
but it was a work that he was doing.
Yeah.
It says for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. What? I mean, he endures the most disgusting and difficult journey in the history of the world, and he puts joy in there. That isn't like happy as can be, kind of stuff. That is a joy that is built in faith. And I say this all the time, people, listen, I've been through my death. I'm not worried about death. People are like, like, dude, I don't ever worry about that stuff. Now I've already been through my death. If God wanted me to give my death up or my life up, whatever, cool. Want it now? And when you operate that way, man, the world doesn't have any hold on you. I mean, it doesn't know what to do with you. And you're operating in next level. And I know when people talk about like this 5D kind of stuff, it's a little new agey for me, but I just gotta say, listen, man, I'm operating at a level you're just not operating on. And if you want to come around there, you can. The God of the Bible did unbelievable things. Man, that kind of stuff can be here if you want it to, but you got to operate in it. It's practice in it. I mean, when a wide receiver is practicing, he's practicing something. Here's a thing I talk about all the time with my staff. Most people practice a free throw and they practice it until they get it right. That's what they do. What professionals do is they practice something until they can't get it wrong. It's really a simple thing. They practice it so many times that there's just no way to break it. I practice my faith until I can't get it wrong. And you're going, geez, dude, I don't know. I mean, I don't. You can too, but don't believe the stupidness that you've been fed. Start thinking about the things that God really came through for you. And it can be little things. But when you do that, what you do is you build your faith. It's like you want to have a savings account. Well, I want to have $10,000 in my savings account. Well, if you got $100, let's start with $100 and then put $1 a week in it. I mean, and you go, well, that's not enough. Does it have to be? Do you have to have $10,000 tomorrow? How about put $1 a week? How about put $10 a week in it? That makes sense. That's the faith. That's investing in your faith with that. And I do it every day, all day long. And if there's things that are anti-faith, then I won't watch TV for the most part. I mean, there's shows I watch here and there, but I'm watching for different kind of reasons. And if people are on my channel or other things and they want to be like unfaithful and get all pissy, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna tell you, my administrators, if they get all mad, I mean, they're like, freaking out on my people and just bringing negativity, they're gonna get banned. And you might go, God, that's rude. I'm sorry, but I'm caring about 10,000 people on my channel. That you want to bring your pissed off nature. It ain't happening with me, because what it does is it infects you. That negative stuff infects you. So you've got to see it as that negative versus positive kind of a thing. I'm a business owner. I've had to fire people. I fire people when they're negative influences. By the way, you go, yeah, I get it. If you're negative influence, what are you doing? You're investing negative money in your bank account. Simple as that.
On Telegram, people talk about Tesla and the power of 369, the keys to the universe and stuff like that. And supposedly, if you write down things in a notebook 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, 9 times in the evening, that's supposed to help you get what you want. And people on Telegram talk about this sort of divine matrix. So what do you think about that stuff?
I would say it's too much of a theorem. It's like, if I do this, if I do this exactly with God or with the universe, because you don't want to believe in God, that's fine. And the answer is, it only goes this far. If you could design everything and do it, and everyone could do it, then everyone would be rich, or everyone would be successful, or whatever the point is here. And so there is something to this, okay? But the reality is, let me, and Kevin and I were talking about this. Do you know God, the God of the Bible, he tells you to do these crazy things and they make no sense. When you look at the disciples and you look at the Old Testament guys and you look at all this stuff and you're going, why did they walk around a city 7 times for Jericho and then the walls fall down? He's breaking your logic. He's stop with the idea of writing it down 6 times or 7 times or 3 times or 1 time, or you know what? Start just practicing some decent habits. I mean, you don't lose weight by like, skipping a meal all the time and whatever, and never eating ever again, or stuff like that. It's by eating right and doing some of the right things. And sometimes it's a habit kind of forming thing. And again, I don't have a problem if you want to do a bit of a habit point. And but if you start to make it a matrix and a theorem, and you work on that, then things are just always in your control. And the reality is, kind of leave room for the supernatural of God. And if you leave room for the supernatural, there's a great, amazing things that can happen. But if so I don't pray a certain amount of time. I don't read the Bible a certain amount. I don't read I don't do it in a certain way. I kind of just go, what do you want to do today, God? I get up at 5 in the morning. I don't worry about, I don't even set an alarm anymore. He just wakes me up. And sometimes it's at 5:13, sometimes it's at 3:13. I don't worry about it. It's time to do it. It's time to do it. And I get up, and sometimes I have a lot to say, and sometimes I have a little to say. If I'm, when I'm in a point that I need to write my book, it's time to write. And is it, so I'm listening to God all the time, and I don't make it this matrixy thing that you can, a pattern and exact kind of thing. And again, it's good to have, a work ethic in that way and try to do that and break some of your old patterns. I totally get it. Nothing wrong with that. But when you try to make it all in your own power, it becomes something that you break, and then you're up and down in your own, situation. That too. So
When it comes to the Rodriguez Trust and the Saint Germain Trust, how did these trusts get started, and like how old are they?
well, some of them are hundreds of years old. I mean, and there's actually about 11 different trusts out there that we don't even know about. Those are just the famous ones. Saint Germain is really made up of the executive order 13818. So all that money, all the things that they did wrong, we're taking that back and putting it in the Saint Germain Trust so that the people of the world can get out of debt, get on a gold-backed currency. Simple as that. And that's the thing that people are going to focus on most. The Rodriguez Trust is for humanitarian issues, okay? And people that are going to be doing that kind of stuff, they're going to have real specific things. Hey, listen, you get this money and you're getting it to do things. They don't care about you driving a nice car or whatever, but they're like, you need to do these things or we're going to rip the money away. So those are humanitarian projects. Sometimes they're for governments to do that too. So governments are going to give them money and going, hey, listen, in Mexico, your roads suck. You need to fix your roads. And they're going to be watching it. And so there's a point of the white hat, families, the Chinese elders going, did you do it? What I've known about that for a long time is that you're going to be submitting goals. Those people are going to be submitting goals. And listen, when much is given, much is required. That's from the Bible, guys. That same principle actually plays out. I mean, when I have an employee who makes 30,000 versus an employee who makes 70,000 versus, when I hire other people down the road, we're a bigger company and they make more money. Do you think that I expect higher things of the person making a higher amount than the lower amount? If the answer is yes, then I put more responsibility on that. And listen, some of that Rodriguez Trust is going to come to governments, some of it's going to come to groups, some of it's going to come to individuals, and they're going to have responsibility. And what will happen if they don't do it? If they violate the trust, they'll have everything wiped away from them. If they just don't meet their goals, they'll help them. But if they don't really want to work with anymore, you're never getting another dollar from us ever again. And so it's going to be, and some people say the QFS has got, Palladian mythical qualities. It's just crap. We can track through blockchain what people are spending their money on. And if you find out, someone with that humanitarian money spending some crappy thing on, you just go, no, we're not doing this anymore with you. So that's the thing that's happening. But there's a bunch of other trusts out there. And it's got to be taken, they're looking at taking care of you for years and years and years down the road with that.
When it comes to the World Bank, are they corrupt? And do they have more power than the Federal Reserve?
No, I mean, the World Bank is just an outward agency kind of thing. The BIS, all these other things, the International Monetary Fund is just a focus of the CIA to place it over top of the nation they're trying to screw this time. And all that stuff is, the World Bank is just a term for all the central banking. So, that's where we're taking the funding from to set in for the Saint Germain Trust. So that's where we're taking the money from. And these people, they're losing all of their sources. And so that's the key that you got to see in there.
Let's see here. I just had the question. How did the World Bank get started? And how are they different from the Federal Reserve?
Well, I don't have all the thing off the top of my head, sorry, of the World Bank, but I'll say this: the central banking has been around for a very long time frame. The Rothschild family has been in the 1700s, and the reality is that we were signing the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. The day before, they were signing a lot of the idiot cabal stuff that they were doing. This is, in that same time frame with that thing. The American government comes in, and Washington is wanting freedom. As soon as John Adams, who's actually one of my heroes with this thing, I mean, he created a great government. He put I'm blanking the guy, Hamilton on, and Hamilton was a central banker. So when you understand Hamilton's bringing in the central banking kind of point, that's when you go, wait a second, what's going on? And by the way, the War of 1812 didn't just happen in 1812. It was going on for years before and years after, but it's focused on 1812. It's because they were in a bankruptcy point. See, we were in the central banking point, and we went through a bankruptcy point, and we finally said, fine, we'll pay you our what we owe you. And then the British left. And we kicked them out in 1836 with Andrew Jackson. And by the way, Andrew Jackson's picture has been on Trump's wall many times because he was in a gold-backed currency. Abe Lincoln was killed because he wanted to make a greenback currency, because he wanted to make a currency. A lot of these other things that happen are related to bad things that were occurring, and they're trying to take this in. Now the Fed starts in December 23rd, 1913, under Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson will tell you it was the worst decision that he ever made. He had no choice. You guys don't understand. They had backed both Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson. I don't even know the third party. That they backed all three of them. And they were like, they don't care who gets in. We just one of you guys are gonna do the Fed. Because the old bill that I'm blanking the name of the guy. I think it was in 1911. They had a bill, and it was a central bank, and Congress went crazy over this. No, we're not going to do a central bank. And so then they changed to the Federal Reserve, and it sounded like a federal agency. Well, it was a private agency by these idiot 13 bankers, and they were going off of the Constitution. That's when we were going illegal. Okay, people talk about the good old days in the 50s. Hey, listen, we haven't seen the good old days. We're about ready to see the good new days. Okay, when we're outside the banking system. But the central bank's been around and been influencing America, and we've been fighting back and forth. And the central banks of the 1 mile square mile of the London area is the banking area, and America's got DC is on purpose not a state. It is a territory of the corporation with that too. So we had to take out that, and we had to take the Vatican out, the spirit point with this. So we had to take out those three things, and that was the whole goal of the White Hats. But it is about the money too.
My next question for you is, besides medbeds, what type of new technologies do you think we'll see under NESARA?
I can tell you about a technology, and I'm not going to get into full of those things. One thing I'm looking forward to, there are hearing aid technology. I wear hearing aids, I have hearing loss. But there are technologies, and we sort of have that in the phones here, but there are technologies, what it's called beamform microphones, that you can actually focus on a cool level that happens with Bluetooth technology and infrared stuff, that we can bring hearing back to near normal, and really knock off noise issues. That's just in my industry. The CIA and FBI and NSA took it all over. That's just a technology we don't even talk about. There are technologies that we can, have water in the cars instead of the gas in the cars. It doesn't mean we don't have to have gas, but we have a lot of different ways that we can be more efficient in cars and the transportation issues. But it's not trying to kill off different industries. I'm just saying there's all kinds of things. There's a technology, and I kind of mentioned this before, but there's technologies to put a turbine in the ocean as a bi-directional turbine to have water flowing and to create electrical energy like crazy. There's all kinds of cool technologies like that. And we've collapsed them. We need to bring the engineers and the inventors and all these other people and kind of empower them. That's part of the Rodriguez Fund, is to empower those people to create those technologies, because we need to redo those technologies. We're too far on some of these other crazier things that we want to talk about, but there's some really base technologies, things that we can do to fix cancer tomorrow, fix this thing tomorrow. Well, not necessarily tomorrow, but you get the idea. We can fix these kinds of things. And you know, people talk about, well, we're not going to have hospitals anymore. Well, yeah, we will. You break a leg, what are you going to do? You're not going to, you know, there's things that we need to have, and we need to teach people how to be healthy with it. Instead of, you know, health has been about, you know, fixing the sick. We need to teach people about being healthy. That's a real good thing for doctors and nurses to do. And there are things that we can make people better. And we just chose not to do it because the money was in making them sick. So.
Now, everybody and their sister, they want to know what's delaying NESARA and how many more delays are we going to experience?
Yeah, I'd love to know that answer. And I always say, you know, people ask me all the time, when is it going to happen? I say soon. And like, well, you need to tell me a date. I'm like, there's 10 people in the world that know the date. And I'm not one of them. So that's the first thing I say. Second thing I'd say, it's an event-driven point. Okay, that's why I use the go, no go kind of concept. Okay, this is a complicated thing. There are, you know, people that need to get paid to get, you know, pay the governments to pay the process to get the money flowing. That's part of it. We need to, you know, get the systems in place. You know, the Black Hats are, man, I mean, they are fighting it tooth and nail, and they're fighting the money more than anything else. They're trying to win elections in their own way. You know, Katie Hobbs things is just the stupidness of the system. You know, we're finding things we didn't know about. NESARA should have released back in around, they really wanted it the day after the idiot's inauguration. Then they delayed it to August 25th or August 2021. And they found 4 more nuclear bombs in these deep underground military bases they didn't know about. And so that really delayed them. Then Trump was, his son and another family member were kidnapped, you know, and then they had to get him back. And then it was like, okay, we're freaked out. How do we take care of him? How do we do the right things with this? And you know, we don't know all the stuff. We have no idea all the things that have been happening in the background. And when you kind of think, well, this should just get done. But if you watch a movie and there's bad guys in it, and it's really detailing the bad guys, can't think of one off the top of my head, but whatever, you think of The Godfather, you know, and you realize the depth of them. We've got to go deep, deep, deep into the disgusting stuff that they've done, and really got to dig it all out. When we know that they can't push a button to destroy the world, it's ready. We know the money's all flowing in the right areas, and we know they can't destroy anything, it's ready. That's why I call it, the EBS is really going to be what's called a fake false flag. A false flag is like the Titanic, where thousands of people die, 9/11, where tens of thousands of people die. This has to be a fake false flag event. So we let them do their, like a blue beam technology where they fake something, like we saw 9/11 was a blue beam technology with a WED or technology that, you know, we the IED, you know, technologies that are coming from the, you know, all the way from the top and sending down electrical energy and doing all this stuff. It also happened in Nashville in Christmas of 2020. All these different things, those are fake, those are false flags. But we need that fake false flag, and then we show them, hey, it really wasn't about the nuclear scare event. See, we're too focused on the scare event. I don't care what it is. I really don't. It's going to be a global thing, but I'm focusing on, wait, what are they going to reveal? And the big things I always say, you got to reveal COVID, because that was the fake, and that's the cover for the NESARA stuff. Okay. You've got to reveal the elections, because that will also deal with the executive order 13848. That is, you know, if you do election fraud, you're going to federal prison, or you're in treason. And then the last thing is the child trafficking. which is the real bad crimes. I don't care if you're left wing, right wing. If you believe that little Katie Hobbs, I don't know if she was one or not. I don't really care. When you realize that most of these people that you looked up to, the Tom Hanks or the whatever ones, are really ugly child traffickers, everyone comes against them. So what you do is you mobilize the units and you say, we're taking these out, and this is why we're taking them out. This is the point of the EBS with that.
Now, for the new viewers that don't know much about NESARA 9/11, could you give a 5-minute summary about NESARA and 9/11?
Okay. So in September of 2000, I'm trying to remember all the things here of that. September 2000, we have the military was going to take over. And so they went into Bill Clinton's office, and the White Hat military went in and forced him by gunpoint to sign the NESARA documents, the ones you can find online. And so it's interesting that it's Bill Clinton, or excuse me, Bush, because the first systemic election issue that came through was the hanging chads in the Florida area. It was a very close election between Gore and Bush. Okay, and they wanted Bush in because he was the in of that. I mean, they're like best friends, and I know this for a fact because I've seen. I have video footage of other areas of Bill and Bush together. They're like best buds. You think that they're political rivals. They're not at all political rivals. They're cut from the same cloth. And he was there to be the useful idiot. Now, the reality is that if a president's out of the office at 9/11, which he was, and he was in Florida, and he's and reading books to little kids, and what he was reading is really interesting. You need to have the vice president in the office. Well, how come Dick Cheney isn't even there? He's not in the Oval Office. And so there was a real funny thing. What Bill Clinton, or excuse me, Poppy Bush, which is the old Bush, Herbert Walker, is in the White House, and he kills the NESARA thing. So what was in the Tower 1 and 2 and Tower 7 of the 9/11 buildings, what was in there was the computer system, the JFK files, that was the progenitor of the Q stuff, and all the gold in there. So that was supposed to create it, and it was supposed to do it. And so Herbert Walker Bush, who actually was part of the kill team for JFK, because Herbert Hoover, sorry, said that wrong. Hoover actually outed Poppy Bush, that he was in Dallas in 1963. So Poppy Bush goes in and he signs the kill order for the NESARA stuff. And to cover it all, they take those buildings down. And they had already put thermite and all kinds of other things. So they had DEWs coming down on the buildings. There's very unique event of how those buildings come down. They have to put a hole in a missile hole in the Pentagon. That's not a plane in there, it's a missile hole. We got video evidence of that stuff. And because that was some of the documentation, so they could cover the $3.2 trillion that they took out of the NESARA funds, $3.2 trillion one day earlier. $3 billion of Building 7, 3 billion or some number, I don't have the exact number, but it was, the Silverstein, it's telling you that the building was going to be pulled before it was pulled, or before it comes down. It's because he had an insurance policy about 2 months before. This whole thing was a false flag event, and it launched us into all the wars that we wanted to do. And so the whole point was to kill NESARA. And so it made them real. It made the White Hats real. They were like, we cannot let anyone know anymore what happens. They tried to bring in some of the new funds in 2008 and 2009, and it caused the housing crisis. And they knew it. And so they tried to bring it in through the fiat currency, and they held it back. So you know, they have all the stuff. That's why you don't know what's happening. This is the tightest operation in the history of the world. No one knows it. And I mean, why doesn't more people, I mean, a lot of people know about the child trafficking and the election stuff and all the other things. How come they don't know about the NESARA stuff? Why is it we're the idiots in this whole thing? It's because this is the key element of this thing. This is the linchpin that puts it together. And if you don't think, if you think that, you know, this is a military operation, you would have had an admiral, a general leading this thing. How come they brought in Trump, an economist, to lead this? Because this is about NESARA, guys. This is about NESARA, and he created the NESARA stuff. The shooting in Las Vegas in 10/1/17 was all about getting the crown prince on board, and he told each one of the big tech what they had to do and what time frame that he was supposed to be taken off of Twitter. That we needed to control the narrative and let them be in their playground doing crazy things, but only be in that playground event with that. So 9/11 was the creation of like, wait a second, we need to do a secret operation.
What do you think is going to happen to Social Security disability payments when NESARA goes into effect? Do you think they're going to increase or stay the same?
They'll go up. We know, we're pretty sure that the payment should be around $3,000 to $5,000 a month, not up above and beyond, but $3,000 to $5,000 is probably the amount. Again, we don't know exactly when, but once it's close, you know, normally that's why it kind of happens near the end of the beginning of the month, because most Medicare, or sorry, the Social Security stuff happens, you know, beginning of the month, you know, so their payment comes to them the 3rd or so. So that's kind of why you always think at the end of the month, you kind of wonder about, is NESARA ready for this month, you know, and then that's why it's hard. And man, I wish I've been wrong so many times. I don't say, you know, I just know we're soon. Everything is lining up more and more. We're at 30th of December here, and pray that we're over the hump real soon here with that.
So NESARA, I mean, so Social Security disability and regular Social Security retirement are basically going to be treated the same.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, we don't know the exact amount on there. And welfare, man, we got to rethink welfare. This is a system doesn't work. We can't have people like they can work, but they don't want to work, and they just have more babies. And you know, we need to rethink the system. They're so black and white. There's more gray that we need to take advantage of, and we need to look at this. We need to flush the system out and rethink them through with that.
What do you think is going to happen to YouTube and Google going forward? Do you think that? What?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Do you think they're going to stay around with the same name and just have like different leadership, or do you think they're going to get wiped away?
I thought they were going to get wiped away, but look at Twitter. Look at really what happened. I mean, Twitter isn't even a $20 billion company, and the possible white hat, I would say, is a gray hat. Elon Musk pays $44 billion for that thing. Not worth it. And then he fires 75% of the staff, and he basically outs his own company and makes it look like they're stupid. I mean, he just devalued that company in crazy ways. But they're even stronger now because they've come out with an integrity point. I think that is the new pathway. I think what YouTube and Google, they'll put them through bankruptcy. And by the way, you know, YouTube's owned by Google. Okay. I think they're going to be, you know, they're going to be flushed, and they'll come out and they'll be washed away in some ways. And there's algorithms that you guys don't know to stop, you know, a lot of us speaking. And I think they're going to wash away the algorithms. They're going to wash away the bots. They're going to wash away the other stuff. And you're going to find websites that you haven't seen because they've been washing them away. There's a YouTube video series called by a place called Truth Stream Media. Truth Stream Media. She does an answer about how search engines go, and they're all fake. They're so fake, it's not funny. And if you want to know what fake is, go type in NESARA into any search engine, and I don't care what it is, DuckDuckGo, pick any one of them. The first 5 of them are about how fake it is. Why? Why? They're scared to death of it. And so I think a lot of you got to flush away a lot of the bots and a lot of the filters. And I think that's what's going to happen. Now, some of them, hey man, they might not survive. I think you just let them go and you see what happens. And really, in a market where we really need to, a performance-based market, they're going to have to perform. And there were DARPA created technologies. Okay, these are DARPA created, but they're going to have to perform against other technologies. And when you have things like Truth Social and Telegram and all these other ones, they're going to have to compete, and you're going to have choices with it too. And so they're going to have to compete, and it's going to be a very level playing field. Doesn't that sound familiar with the currency level playing field? Same thing's going to happen with companies. They're all going to have to compete. Small businesses have been competing for a long time. We know what it feels like. That's what we don't like about big tech and big corporations. They haven't been competing. But when they have to compete, you'll find if they'll survive. And some of them don't survive because they don't want to compete, or they don't know how to do that anymore. So we'll see.
When it comes to your savings account, when it comes to your interest rate on your savings account, what kind of percentage do you think the people can expect after NESARA is fully implemented?
Well, first off, your savings has got $1,000 in it. It'll be $1,000 gold-backed currency, number one. Number two, the interest rates for, if your interest rates for loaning money is set by the Fed, and there's an amount that they want to make, each of the banks want to make on that thing. So they're all making money inside every time you get a loan. But the interest rates are like next to nothing for generations or so. So they don't want you to save money. Well, guess what happens when the gold-backed currency is the value? You want people to save. So you're going to find them competing for your money. So you're going to start seeing 5%, 10% kind of thing. And you're going to go, what? Yeah, because they want you to have their money in there. Because if they can give you a good amount of money and be competitive to the other rates, you're going to find out they can go invest it. Now you can go choose to go, hey man, I don't want to invest that. I don't want to pay attention to it. It's just not me. Fine, go with a bank. Or you could go invest it yourself. And by the way, that's true. That's been true all the way. You can invest it in other ways, in things that are more risky, or you want to have a less risky investment. And so you're going to have that choice just like you have it today. But the choice is going to be more interesting. You're going to go, wow, bank account. Wow. Well, you could also go with a little bit more risky things out there with a risky investment of a new company venture and make more money from that. It'll just be that thing. But you're going to see percentage points, not 0.4% kind of thing.
So basically, if you have like $500,000, a million, if you have like $1 million in your savings, and the interest rate is 5%, you would get $50,000 per year in just the interest. And if the interest rate is 10%, you would get $100,000 per year, and you're not even doing nothing.
And you're not going to pay taxes on that either, because that's capital gains taxes. So you're going to find that kind of thing. I mean, and by the way, that's a good thing. But here's what happens: people need to if you're sitting there with your money, let's say you're going to have people that are rich. But when you really look at I'm not talking about the gross rich, but look at Trump. I mean, he was worth like 4.5 billion, and now he's worth 3.1 billion. I mean, he's been stolen from a lot of ways, but leave that behind for a second. What drives him? He wants to do things. What drives Don Jr.? He wants to do things with his money and do things. And that's what makes America great. And that's what we need to have. But we need to have that in England, and we need to have that in France and in Russia, and we need to have that in Ukraine. All these countries that want to do better, not just focusing on the money, but they can take that and go, you know what? I want to write a book, I want to make music. I want to, teach people to read and whatever. What if that thing lets you do some community service that you never thought you could do? What if you go, I just want to work super kitchens? That's like my heart. That's a good thing.
So when it comes to interest rates, do you think the person, the bank customer, the person that has the money in a savings account, do you think that person can tell the banker, listen, I'll go with you guys, but you got to pay me such and such interest?
I
Do
don't
you
know.
think the customer has the power to decide the interest rate?
Maybe, but I think I don't think it's going to be like a car dealer. Like, if you do it with, I know, hey man, if a guy walks in with $500,000 versus the guy with $5,000, the guy with $500,000 has more pull to get a better interest rate. That's always going to be the case. Always has been the case. Okay. Because the bank can do more with that $500,000 than the $5,000. That's fact. Okay. So, but if we're talking about two guys walk in, one guy with 5,000, the other guy with 5,000, I'm one guy's not going to negotiate a higher rate because you would not want that train coming toward your face. I think what would happen is that the bank is going to compete. Go back to the competition. If the bank is not competing well, they're going to have to go, you know what? We got to change our interest rates. We need to get more customers in here. And so they'll start raising their rates. Hey, here's the best thing that you can ever do in any negotiation. Be ready to walk. You guys don't catch this. You guys, when you go in to buy a car, you go to buy a house or you buy something, they want you to be so like salivating for that purchase. And the answer is you got to be ready to leave. If you're ready to leave, that's when the power comes. The power doesn't come in your way of negotiating. It's not screaming at the person. I never scream when I negotiate. I'm a hard negotiator. People, oh my God, my staff loves listening to me negotiate. I use logic with them, but I'm willing to walk away. And I'm nice to them, but I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, you're right, obsequious. I'm like, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. But I've known if I ask that question, I know if it's possible. I don't walk in there and make up a number. Everyone's at 5% rate, and I'm asking for 25% rate on a small amount of money. They're going, we're not, that's like pie in the sky craziness. That's being a Karen. None of that stuff is really going to work. And some people got to have a reality check here. So you have to research what you're looking for. So that'll start happening with people. They'll start learning about their money.
Yeah, after the financial blessing, I'm thinking about maybe putting money into XRP, XLM, XDC, all these fancy cryptos that are supposed to be really, really good. And I would like to make money off of a savings account. Because it's one thing to have money, but I also want to make sure I got more coming in so I can keep doing good with it. Because if you don't have more coming in, you're just gonna run out.
Right. So, I mean, there's always a point of liquid savings, which is like your savings account. And then there's investment kinds of things. And so you should have investment, you should have a pinwheel of investments. Okay. And so no matter what happens, is the more that you have the ability to do, the more kinds of things you can do. And it's not just about like buying more and more cars, but what can you do? We need to stop thinking about us and going, you know what? There's a person down the street that I really want to make a difference in her life, but you need to have the investment to be able to do that. So you'd have to have the investment kind of strategies. And I think the bankers are going to become more wealth managers. Like, how do we help that person grow? Hey man, if I can make a difference in that person's life, then it's going to be great. Let me give you a perfect example. I had a patient. He had dementia. His wife, long story, I don't know all the details, but his wife had divorced him. But somehow she's paying for him to be in a nursing home or assisted living place. And there's a long story with that one. But here's what happens. She's paying $5,000 a month and he has no money. And I was like, wait a second, there's this thing called the Medicaid buy down. And I don't want to get into this, but basically I explained it. I showed him. And I said, well, why don't you talk to this lawyer? She goes to the lawyer, and then she comes back and she goes, oh my God, you're the only audiologist in the city who ever tried to do this. And I didn't ask her for anything from them. They've referred patients to me left and right. Why? Because I created value by using this. And what I did is I create rabid fan base because, I want to give to people in that way. I don't let people use me in that way, but that's why I listen to God a lot about stuff. I mean, I've given away more hearing aids than I can count. People like accountants look at my stuff and they're like, what are you doing? God told me to do it. Now, don't walk in there and ask me to like give you something, for free. You walk in there and just act like, give it to me. I'll give you nothing. I'll say, get out, kind of thing. But how do you get to that place where you're going to have to like learn your money and what works for you, how make your money work for you. Just like if you're a business owner, you make sure that your people are working for you so that you can, reach your goals so that they can reach their goals too.
So if I understood this correctly, you're going to give me some free hearing aids. No, I'm just
Exactly.
joking.
There you go.
Awesome. Let's see. What are your thoughts on weather modification technology? Because obviously Buffalo got they got hit with like 48 inches of snow, and I mean, I think that was
that's hard.
I think that was a black hat thing.
Yeah, the HARP thing is really a sick thing. They've been doing this for a long time. I've been noticing though in the Tulsa area, the streaks going overhead, all that stuff, the cloud seeding and all that other crap, I don't see it anymore. I mean, I'm not saying it's not happening in other places. I'm saying I'm not seeing it much anymore at all in the Tulsa area. So some of that stuff is going away, but they got all kinds of stuff out there. Man, that is like the biggest open secret. It's been around for a long time. It's just been more and more sophisticated. It's because they want you to focus on watching the media. And so you watch the TV program because they already know what the weather forecast is going to be, in essence, so they want to, it's like gambling, and they want to gamble, but they want to, fix the game. They always want to rig the game. So you focus on them for your information with that. And then, there are weather issues that can happen, the bad weather issues, but we need to stop this, the manipulation. And that's just one of those areas.
Let's see. My next question for you is, in your opinion, why didn't the military take over the country after the cabal killed Nasara on September 11th?
I think they were really like, I think the White Hats were reeling. And from what I've heard, they were reeling. They were like, wait a second. And they made their intentions too well known. They included the Black Hats, and they were saying, you're going to do it this way at this time frame. And they were like, fine. And they took a date of 9/11, very interesting date. That's a very, very cabal date with that, and let them do that. And they were like, no, from now on, this is going to be a military operation, and it's going to be planned out to the max, and no one's going to know about it. And so I purposely don't say some of the names or some of the things I know, because I don't want to give it away, with that. I get told information. There's some things I'll never say to anyone. And even someday, if I'm under NDA, in essence, I feel like I'm under NDA in some things. So I can't tell you, I won't tell you. It's because they knew too much and they let them know too much. And they were appalled by what they did. And it's like constantly in surprise by the stuff they do and the sickness that they're going. And the sickness that Bush and then Obama wrought is like way worse than they could have imagined with that.
Where do you see us 15 days from today?
Well, I'm not one of those people subscribes to like the 10 days of darkness kind of thing. I think when the EBS happens, it's gonna be a few days of kind of seeing what happens. We do hear that they might, close down some areas, like Philadelphia, where it's, it's very heavy stronghold. Yeah, I know you're kind of close to that area, but I think what we're going to start seeing is you don't want to shut people up heavily on that. Military is going to be more visible out there. And I would say that after that, you're going to start seeing they'll roll out these things, and it's going to hit them piece at a time. So it's going to be pretty powerful. And when it's going to happen, you're going to be surprised too. There's going to be things that are like, whoa. Just remember to sit back. You guys know some of this stuff. Sit back and celebrate a little bit. Celebrate. And I'm telling you what, if you don't celebrate the good things that are happening, you're just going to be focused on the bad things. So, I mean, we have a bottle of I don't do champagne. We just have like the sparkling cider stuff. We have a bottle that's waiting for us, and it's been in the refrigerator. Gotta look if it's any good, but she bought a new one today, so we'll see if that's any better. But celebrate, guys, celebrate that time frame. Because there's going to be a huge amount of freedom that's releasing, but some of it's not going to be in the way you do. And I got to tell you, guys, calm down. You think that some people are going to walk into this and they're going to blow a gasket because something didn't happen the way they expected it. I swear to you, I've had people have conversations that Kevin and I have had conversations about on the back end that I won't even talk to anyone about. And I mean, they're freaking out over something that someone said, and they're expecting that this is happening. I'm like, man, your expectations are way too high on some of that stuff. Chill out. I mean, listen, I'm telling you about some crazy things, but I've researched every single thing I'm talking about here. So nothing I'm telling you is something I have researched, and I've had plenty of witnesses that have corroborated that stuff. Okay. So keep your expectations down, celebrate the wins. That's the only way it works, man. If you don't celebrate a little bit, you're in trouble.
So who controls Nasara, and who controls like the release and stuff like that? Is it the military? Is it Trump?
It's the Q team. It's in essence the Q team, and there's some we know and some we don't. And I'll never tell you. There's one guy I think it is that I know is in there, but I never say his name. And so but on purpose, I'm they haven't released his name, so I don't think I'm allowed to release the names. But my point is that these Q teams, they're really doing a great job, and these are good people, and they're not perfect people. Trump isn't a perfect guy. Don't think he is. And he doesn't, people say, well, Trump said this. I'm like, well, doesn't mean it's right about everything he does. And if I was sitting in front of me, you're like, I'm not right about everything. Just get good information, but it doesn't mean I'm not wrong. He's made mistakes, and I make mistakes, and I do an advertising thing and thinking it's going to work, and it falls flat. There you go. The reality is that it's a small group of people. We really don't know who they are. I sort of know who they are, but we really don't know who they are. And I would just say, don't worry about it too much. I mean, we get too focused on that team and everything, but I'm seeing a lot of unbelievably good things they've been doing.
Why do they call it rainbow currency if we're just going to use gold to support the dollar?
Okay, that's a real good point. You got to go back and look at some history of money, and it was really hard to carry your gold around, and if it was a more expensive purchase, you had to carry in big bags of gold. What does that make you? It makes you a target, right? So we started coming with paper currency that you could change it out for the gold. Works, right? Checks, when you wrote a check, they were backed by gold that was set in the bank. So a certain amount of money went out, certain money was set aside to pay that kind of debt. That's how that works, okay? Now, only when we created the fiat currency that, we went off of a gold standard and all this other stuff, right? So now we go back on a gold standard, and we need to make sure that that piece of money, it's able to go in our wallets. So people might be using more physical currency with things. It doesn't mean you're not going to have digital currency, but the digital currency is backed by gold through the QFS. So the reality is, why rainbow currency? A lot of other currencies are much more sophisticated looking than our currency today. And I think that was one of the things. We need to have currencies that you can look at under blue light, and you could physically look at some of those. If you've seen some of the currencies, like the Vietnam dong is a gorgeous currency, and it's readily recognizable with the different color points. We haven't done that in America. I don't exactly know why. Maybe it's easier to launder the money. I don't know the whole thing. But when you have really unique looking currency, it just helps. I mean, it's kind of like when you go to a really fancy restaurant and you get a really nice hamburger versus going to idiot McDonald's. Don't they look different to that? It's kind of the thing. If we're going to go to a gold currency, we're going to make that new US note look better. And I think that's the whole point there, is to readily show this looks different than that thing right there.
And in regards to currency, I do think that we're all going to get polymer notes, and I do think that the dollar might look similar to what we have now, but it's just going to be cleaner. And when I say cleaner, I mean less satanic.
Yeah, and I think that's what the first one is. It's called US note. It's going to look very similar. Now, are they going to come up with a gold? I mean, with the rainbow currency, US Treasury note? That's the rumor. I don't know, and we'll see about 6 months afterward and go, yeah, it's time to come out with a better system with that too. And I don't know that for sure. And frankly, I don't think we'll care. We'll be like, okay, cool. But I want, if we're going to make physical notes, and people are going to rely more on the physical stuff a little bit more, because they're not really happy with the digital stuff. That better look good, and it better be not, easily created. Put it in a nice scanner and recreate that thing. So we really need to have good looking stuff that is almost impossible to make, and that's probably what they're going to be working on with that too.
Well, listen, Dr. Scott, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you doing this interview. I can't wait till we do it again.
Amen to that. We're going to have a lot of fun, man. So I appreciate you guys.
Scott.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.